Hey, it's me. It's animated me. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and it's time for another episode of Completed It. Movie reviews, pop culture, celebrity guests, and all that good stuff. Oh, and my good friend over there, Sasha Alari, as my co-host. Hey, Satch, hit the titles, brother. Hey everybody, welcome back to Completed It. Happy Halloween. It's Halloween night. So here are your Completed It boys with our horror special. For those that were tuning in on Monday, or for those that have been tuning in over the last few months, know that myself and Sash were kind of are still horror virgins. Like I said on Monday, we're kind of like the kids now that are just getting the new aftershave and gelling our hair and taking ourselves off to the nightclub to try and pull the bird that we want, but we've got the masters in the corner educating us, telling us where to go and what path he's leading us down. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and as you can see at the bottom of my screen, my good friend, longest friend in the world, as many times stated. Sash, how are you, brother?
All good, man. All good.
Happy Halloween, mate.
Ready to get up in
You didn't
this.
have to dress up for it, but I like the mask. Kidding.
Yeah.
My humor is as bad as the 80s films that I've been watching. Sorry, Neil. Anyway, at the top left, as you can see, is my horror. We call him the horror Yoda. What this man does not know about horror and Marvel is not worth knowing about. So while we're doing a horror special, we had to get him on. Neil, happy Halloween, brother. How are you?
Halloween. Now I'm doing fantastic. My
What do you
favorite
prefer,
time of the year.
Halloween or Christmas?
Halloween.
I knew
All
it.
day, every
So
day.
many people are like that, So many people are like, there's a house. Not, I go to football every week to watch
Mhm,
to help work at my football club. There's a house on the corner. No
mhm.
word of a lie. I'll try and send it to you guys. Some of the best decorations I've ever seen. It used to be very an American thing, Halloween. I find that when I went
Yes.
out to the States a lot,
Mhm.
Halloween, and it used to be America go for it's like their Christmas Day. I think they prefer it more than Christmas Day because obviously they have Thanksgiving, etc. But it seems to be over the last X amount of years, Halloween over here is a big thing. It used to just be like, you'd put on something and you used to get one of your mum's old bed fucking sheets and off you went trick or treating. Now it's like you're going around dressed as Michael Myers, you're going around dressed as everything, Freddy Krueger. It's probably bigger here than it's ever been. So us completed it boys are here to talk all things horror and horror movies. Neil, you've been educating us over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
Mhm.
Myself, Sash, and many people in the WhatsApp
Group chat.
chat. Shout out to
Mhm.
all of them that are watching this. Horror movies, Neil.
Yeah.
Where does it sit amongst the greats? Because I've spoke to a few horror fans. I wanted to make sure I'd done my research for this show. My one of my best friends, Chris, it's his life, his horror. He's like, I can't wait for you two to eventually meet. I will just put you in a room and I'll be like, back in about 5 hours because you two will still be going. He's like, he sent me a list like you did. He's like, watch
Yeah.
this, don't watch this first. The horror genre.
Hmm.
Speaking to people that haven't been horror fans, it
Yep.
gets a bad rap. Speaking to people that are horror fans, for them, it's their Marvel, it's their DC, it's their Star Wars. Where for you does the horror genre sit? Does it get a bad rap, rightly so in some people's, because some people like don't like scary movies. I don't, and I was of that opinion growing up, and even as I
Mhm.
got into my 20s and 30s, I was like, do you know what, sitting in the cinema shitting my pants isn't really for me.
Mhm.
Having watched a lot of 80s horror over the last few weeks and maybe a
Yep.
month now, I've got into horror, and having watched things like Black Phone and Black Phone 2 and etc., and what we'll call modern horror, thriller
Yeah.
horror, I'm kind of like, oh, it's actually not that bad. Because I always just associated horror with, I'm going to go into the cinema, they're going to scare me, and I'm
Mhm.
not really going to pay attention to the storyline. Is that, and that's the perception I've got from it. So I've spoke to a lot of my friends, a few people at
Mhm.
work. I'm like, what do you think of horror movies? They're like, don't go to watch horror movies. They just scare me and I don't pay attention to the storyline. I'm like, oh, at least it's not just me then. Neil,
Yep.
preach to everyone why horror is your Marvel and is your Star Wars.
Okay. I will put it in a very simple way. Horror movies are they're the roller coasters that you don't have to go to the theme park for. When you go to a theme park and you go on a roller coaster, you go to Alton Towers and you're on what's it called, Oblivion, or you go all of these rides, you go to Thought Park and they got the Hyperion or whatever the ride is, right? All these places, you go there And because you're like, yay, it's fun and everything's cool, you're not thinking this is actually scary. But when you're strapped in and that ride's about to start, when you're at Oblivion and it's like you hear that cranking, that and you get to the top and then you wait, that anticipation is fear. Now you know nothing's gonna go wrong, but the anticipation of you being 50 feet in the air, hanging over this ledge, looking straight down the track, and you see the hole with a little bit of steam coming out of it, right? That's scary. All a horror movie is that in the comfort of your own chair with popcorn and a drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, I think what it is nobody likes to be afraid, but everyone likes the post scare feeling, right? That thing of think somebody does a jump scare to you, right? You experience a jump scare. The second the jump scare is done and the realization hits you, everything's fine. What do? You start laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something like ah, and you're like, you laugh about it because it's
I spent
funny,
hours on TikTok
right?
watching them videos.
You know, that's the thing. People spend hours watching TikTok and Instagram and YouTube videos of people scaring other
People in
people,
their
and it's
workplaces jumping
hilarious.
out from under the desk. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's hilarious. But because there's no spooky music, it's not dark outside, it's just a regular office or a regular kitchen or something, it's hilarious. But that is exactly what horror movies are. They engage that part of you that it's like, okay, there's anticipation and there's tension, and then something happens, and then you're good.
Okay.
And that's
Do horror movies
yeah,
negate storyline over scares? That's been a perception of a lot of people that I've
absolutely
spoke
not.
to. So this is why I want to do this show because
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
yeah, so a
by the
lot of
way.
people that
Yeah.
I know that aren't horror
Mhm.
fans but watch a few horror movies
Yeah.
always say to me, Burrows, I said, they're like, I can't wait for you to do this episode because I was kind of that perception. I'm not now because you've got me into horror
Yeah.
and there's some really good storylines and there's some really
Mhm.
good storytelling. But a lot of people's perception are horror movies are just that. They're blood, guts, gore, scare, storylines fifth on that list.
Never, not at all.
Change people's
Because
minds, Neil.
listen here, right? Some of the best horror movies I've ever seen have minimal amounts of gore,
Mhm.
right? You think of it like this. Okay, we'll start with two of the big ones, right? You've got A Nightmare on Elm Street and you've got Halloween, right? To me, Nightmare on Elm Street is the best horror film, period. Say no, I don't want to hear, yep, it's on my t-shirt. I don't, it's the best. It's not my favorite, but it's the best. The reason I say it's the best is because every film genre has tropes. One of the tropes of a horror film is you're in a situation, you know, you got the tropes of like really and truly, especially slashers, more slashers than say your possession movies and your the other stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
Things with slashers, usually it's one killer, the killer is hunting you, and you just gotta run away and escape. And as long as you as long as you got a good pair of shoes on and you got a clear, flat road, you're probably fine, right? I've always said, look, if Michael Myers was chasing me, that man's gonna have a hard time. Right? Because when I engage that, that 100-meter sprint, I'm off. Freddy Krueger,
You look a bit silly in a horror movie when your hamstring pings.
yeah. But you look at it like that, and you think of A Nightmare on Elm Street,
Mhm.
you can't get away because it takes the one thing that you need, sleep. Everybody needs to fall asleep at some point in time. No matter how many Red Bulls you drink, no matter how much coffee you have, no matter how much Pro Plus you take, no matter how much cocaine you do, at some point in time, you're going to fall asleep. And when you do fall asleep, there he is waiting for you.
Mm.
You know, Jaws, hey, it's a shark. It's in water. So as long as I'm sitting on dry land, I'm good.
Yeah, don't get me started on Jaws.
You know, it's things like that. Whereas with A Nightmare on Elm Street, you're just there. So it's that moment of you can't escape this. And I imagine everyone who watched that film back in 1984 when it came out, everyone who watched that went home and had a slight bit of apprehension about falling asleep.
Hmm.
And that's a collective experience that no other genre can give you. I love horror, superhero films. I love science fiction. I love all film genres in general.
Hmm.
But is going to make you nothing is going to elicit the reaction that will live on beyond the film, like horror.
Okay. Okay.
Because, like I said, you think Nightmare on Elm Street, right? You watch it. You could watch Nightmare on Elm Street at 8 a.m. in the morning. When you're done, and then 10 p.m. comes and it's time for you to go to sleep, you might just have a quick flash in your mind that you remember that you watched that film, and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. Whereas you might watch Jaws and never go swimming in the sea on a day in your life.
Make some good points, Sash. For full disclosure, me and Sash recently watched Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time in the last 2 weeks. We've done
Proud of you, boy.
first, yeah, we finally got to it. Now, let's caveat this quickly with saying 80s movies and movie
Uh-huh.
making is very different to what we have today. I want to
It is.
clarify that before I get into my Nightmare on Elm Street chat.
Mm-hmm.
Because watched Nightmare on Elm Street last Monday, Tuesday, whenever it was.
Yes.
I thought I was watching an extended version of Spitting Image. It was so bad, yet so good.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movie fan in me thinks I have to like, this is 1984, Andy. This is 1984. You were 4 years old. You weren't really, unless you were watching whatever Postman Pat, you weren't really watching Nightmare on Elm Street then. So it's not until even when you get to 1990, when I was 10, 91, when I was 11, even then
Yep.
you're kind of like, do I want to watch Nightmare on Elm Street? Everything you heard growing up, me and Sash grew up together. Nightmare on Elm Street is like it's the biggest horror, it's the most scariest film of all time. Me and Sash have sat down recently as 45-year-old men watching it. And when you don't look at it as this is filmed in 1984,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the funniest, most stupidest films I've ever watched in my entire fucking life. It's so bad, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2 has got to be one of the worst movies I have ever
Mm.
seen in my entire life. Nightmare
Oh,
on Elm Street 3.
Mm-hmm.
The big furore about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise
Yes.
is the biggest fraud I've ever known to man. It is so overrated.
Mm-hmm.
It is unbelievable. The remake on Netflix, I've got halfway through that. I'm like, I'm turning this shit off. Someone needs to get this franchise. Whoever the biggest horror maker is out there now, if you want to reboot Nightmare on Elm Street, then you're gonna have to go some to convince me that these movies are good. Because
It's funny you bring that up.
yeah, and this is not this is just me, and
Yeah.
I'm probably coming from the wrong prism because I'm watching movies now in 2025. I
Yes.
didn't grow up with horror. I've grown up with Star Wars, Star Trek, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, etc., etc. You know, all these kind of Indiana Jones. That's my era. It's my go-to. I will defend them until the cows come home. If
so
anyone ever
so
come on
so
this,
I'll
so
point
let's look at
something
the
out.
first movie. Let's look at the first movie. Did you enjoy the first movie?
I, do you know what? I enjoyed it for what it was,
Okay.
but
Did
now
you not like the plot? Did you not like the plot and stuff?
it
Like
was
the
black. It was black.
yeah,
The only thing I will say and we've
yeah.
done the review already, so everyone go onto our
Yep.
channel, and I said this on the review show with John.
Mhm.
Black Phone 2 is Nightmare on Elm Street. Neil, you haven't done Black Phone 2 yet.
I haven't
Neil,
seen
I
Black
cannot wait for you to see Black Phone 2.
Mhm.
You're either going to be very angry
Mhm.
or very like, oh, homage. I like it.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. Here's what I'm gonna ever so slightly caveat, but it's gonna caveat. It's I'm taking a slip road back to the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this horror movies, especially slasher movies? So your Halloween's, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Texas Chainsaw Massacres. And I say this with full knowledge, knowing that these film ratings are usually 18.
Hmm.
you need to be between the ages of about 13 and 19
Yeah,
to
I
watch
can believe
these
that.
movies from the
Yeah.
first point of time, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because especially slashers, more slashers than anything else, are about they're not about what happens. Do you know what? These movies are generally about promote or they're generally about showing teenagers the consequences of being a teenager, the consequences of a promiscuous existence, the consequences of, oh, oh yeah, 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 you're young, dumb, and full of cum. You're gonna run around and you want to bang as many chicks as you can. Yeah, this is what can happen to you, right? Because whilst your whole brain, whilst the good brain is turned off, and then the little brain is turned up high, and you're focused on, I'm gonna pipe, I'm gonna hit this guy, I'm gonna get me some pussy tonight. Think of how many think back to 16 through to 25 or 15 to 25, and you think how many dumb decisions did you make on the off chance that you win against was
Well, I mean, we'd be here till next week if I don't know.
right. And then think that's the entire slasher genre is
Yeah.
how many stupid decisions did you make in the throes of being horny and trying to get a little coochie, right? So when you watch these films in that era, it's sort of like, I could see that happening. Oh, I could contemplate that. That could happen, right? Whereas when you watch these films as it's 40 plus year old adult, you're like, how stupid can you be? Oh, this is dumb. This doesn't make sense because your brain is you've got too many miles on the clock. There's too much experience within you to be like, I'm gonna make that silly mistake. I'm gonna make that dumb decision, right? When you're 18 and you don't like watch horror films, you never watch horror films, right? And you're in your house at 18, you think you're the only one in the house. You're in the kitchen, and then you hear something drop in the living room. You're like, hello? It's just a common reaction. Now you grew up watching horror films, you hear something drop in the living room, it's like, let me just grab this butcher's knife and just, I'm just gonna hold on to this butcher knife for 1 second and listen again. I ain't gonna say nothing, let me just listen again. Uh-huh. I don't hear nothing. Okay, that's 10 seconds. That's 15 seconds. Okay, let me just turn on a couple lights. Right? So it's like when you watch certain horror films, and especially, yes, watching a horror film from 1984, a 41-year-old movie, it's not gonna age well.
Yeah,
Movies
like
were
I said, I've
these
probably
were
I've
never
probably
big
come from
budget
the
movies.
wrong. Yeah, I've probably come
Yeah,
from the wrong prism, the wrong time. I've said prism 3 times.
yeah. And also,
Love
did you watch this movie in the daytime?
No, I watched it at night.
Did you watch it with all the lights on or off?
Off. Can't watch movie. Anyone that watches movies with lights on,
Mhm.
blasphemy on you. Should
All
never
right,
watch a movie ever
good
again.
man, good man.
Turn
But
it
I
up.
just,
My wife drives my wife crazy. Volume number like 44. My
yeah,
little sub thing I've got here. She's all I hear from upstairs is Odeon, Odeon, not Odeon now.
yeah.
Can't watch a movie in the day. You have to watch a movie at dark, and you have to
Good
have it loud.
man, good
Anyone,
man.
anyone that doesn't do that, get out.
Right.
Sash, you recently got into the horror genre, then, my friend. Give us your take. Like Neil,
I wouldn't
like you
say
say,
recent. I
or
wouldn't
not?
say
You're more
recent.
recent, yeah,
Yeah.
recent-ish.
Well,
No, not
you
really. I
recently
mean,
got
I've
to
Yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
you've
okay,
recently done Nightmare on Elm Street.
so okay, let me take it back with horror. Horror, growing up, I was more like action movies, Jerry Bruckheimer action movies, Arnold, Sly. You know what I mean? There'd be the odd horror film like The Thing or Aliens and Predator because it was more science fiction and
Yeah,
yeah, they had horror elements or some of them were even straight horrors. But those were kind of like my starting point kind of horror movies growing up as a kid and stuff. I didn't really get into horror movies until Scream because all my friends wanted to see Scream at the cinema, the original Scream. I watched that, and what Neil was saying when you get the suspense and then when you get the jump scare and it's followed by laughter. Well, Scream was my first horror movie experience, and anything within the past, couple of years. I have seen, or if I haven't seen it, probably was because I saw it as like A Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that, and I avoided, kind of
Mhm.
thing. So like, but if an audience turned around to me, look, the best audiences you're ever going to get watching a film are the horror fans and action movie fans, okay? Because they will show up in drones if they catch or whiff that this film is going to be good. Okay, some of the best film experiences I've had have been in horror films, and the best experience I've ever had in watching a film in the cinema was The Raid. Okay, if you've ever seen The Raids, and I set that up because I knew this film was going to be special. This is an action movie. I turned around to everybody I knew. I was like, "You need to see this trailer.
Mhm.
Watch the trailer to The Raid. We need to watch this opening day." And I organized that. I got everyone there. I'll never forget this. These two kids snuck in and they sat down in the two seats next to this big guy. And when we saw these two kids come in, the whole audience, by the way, because it's an action movie and it's a martial arts action movie, everyone everyone in there are there for their martial arts, yeah. And
Mm.
they look at these kids. The big guy turns around and goes, "I'm going to stitch you up being in here, but you guys are here to cause stupidness. And
Problems.
I and everyone in this theater are going to rush you, and you are not going to live." And that's what he said to this kid. And you know what
Wish them
happened?
dudes would come to some movies I've been to recently.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
fucking talking and
No, no.
fucking God
The
knows
kids
what.
got up. The kids got up. They ran out, and the
Yeah,
whole cinema erupted in applause. Basically,
love it.
erupted in applause. And that movie was everything. It was everything. So with Scream, the cinema audience was electrifying because it was like literally like a pack house. It's Wes Craven is back now. Now the thing is with Scream, I'd say Scream was when we entered an era where horror movies were written better, and Scream is kind of self-aware about the genre as a whole, but you've got to see like one of the kids is a movie fan, so
Yeah.
he's like Neil. If Neil was in a
Yeah.
horror movie, he's like, yeah, so this is the part where, you know what I mean, like the and he goes, and
Randy.
yeah, Randy, God bless you. He has the rules of the 80s horror slasher movie and stuff, and this is
Mhm.
why I love Scream. Scream was my entry point, okay? But growing up, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think I caught one of the Freddy's when I was 8 or something on the TV. Scared the
Mhm.
shit out of me. So because it scared the shit out of me at 8 years old, I just never,
He's done.
never went back into horror. The slack. So what was it? Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween. All these guys avoided like the plague. Poltergeist, not my thing. Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, no, I won't be into that. I won't be into that. So, we're older, and I'm a movie fan. And I was like, man, I've never done these classic horror films. I've told Neil this plenty of times. And one year I was like, you know what? There's this new Halloween film coming out, and it's kind of a reboot. So I ring up Neil and I said, Neil, what if I'm starting off with Halloween? Where do I start? And he gives me the Bible, and
Mhm.
and I was like, this is the plan, Neil. For a podcast, or whether it's Zito's Gang or Creative
Mhm.
Control or even this one, I was like, every year I'm gonna pick one of the classic horror movie villains that I never grew up with and do the whole series, watch every single entry. Okay. I did that with Halloween.
Mhm.
And then when we went to the cinema, I had a good time. Even though the films were shit, I had a good time because horror movie audiences
Oh
are the best
shit!
audiences. No, because even though Halloween Kills and Halloween
Ah,
Kills Again or Ends or whatever the hell it was called,
ends.
yeah, even though they were dog shit films, I had fun
Oh
slagging off the
no!
movie.
Oh no! No!
Yeah,
No! I
yeah,
might
they
just
were
put my
terrible.
headphones down, let Neil go. I'll be back in
Yeah,
like
but I'm
half
You
an
not
know
hour.
saying
what?
they're good.
I
I'm
say
not saying they're
as
good. We had fun
yeah,
watching it as a communal experience as of how shit
yeah.
it was, it was just like, what the hell is going on? Why is this guy doing that? Evil lives tonight. Get the fuck out of here with this
I'm
shit. You
like
know
that
what
with
I mean?
Friday the 13th. Though I've watched 3 of them now, and they're all shit.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
look, here's the thing,
So,
right?
so, so, so,
You go.
sorry, guys. Back to my point of Freddy Krueger.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is dated for sure, but those were the times of what it was, and I can appreciate the films for what they are. I liked the first film. All right.
Mhm.
I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, but here's the things I did like. I loved the story. I loved the premise. I thought the the characters were fine. My problem with it was it felt very like underwritten and a little bit sloppy and like, like the dialogue and the execution. But that's because it was the 80s. You know what I mean? You didn't have slick Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino type dialogue just yet. And no one will, it was a
They
quick.
were the kids in the cinema watching these
Exactly.
films.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to hold the movie against that high standard. You know what I mean? Because that's just ridiculous too. But I said, look, if I was younger, I would have said 8 out of 10 easily. But I gave it a 7. I gave it a 7. But I was interested to see the remake because it's supposed to be serious horror, which is what I was kind of expecting it to be. But again, that's fine. I like other horror movies that are on the same level of the humor that they're trying to give here with the cheese and stuff. So I was fine with it. So then I watched the remake.
Yep.
And although I thought Jackie Hurley, what's his name?
Jackie Earl Haley.
Jackie Earl Hurley, I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was bad as Freddy. Much darker. Great opening sequence to the movie in the diner, because it was very gritty with, rather than the dream sequences where it gets a bit OTT, you have them that was genius.
Yeah.
But my problem with the movie was it took itself so seriously, it didn't let itself have any fun. It wasn't fun. It was boring as fuck. By the end, you didn't really care. You just kind of wanted it to end, and the pacing was off. Again, strong premise because it's the original just remade, just minus the fun. And unfortunately, I feel now that I've seen a couple of these now, you need it to be fun. You know what I mean? You need to have some joke in there to elevate the horror. And then with number two, we'll only go into number two because Andy hasn't seen the rest. But number two, I felt was a big, massive letdown. I thought it was. I won't say that it was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life because it isn't. It really isn't. But it did have some interesting concepts. Like I like the idea that okay, I like the idea that Freddie's using this kid to come into the real world as like
Yeah.
using him as a host. I thought that was a cool original take.
And
I
that's
was
been
like,
done many times since that movie, by the
oh
way.
yeah, no, 100%. But you know what? Because we're talking about dream world versus real world, that was a
Mhm.
cool way of him
That's a
getting
good
into the real
concept, though.
world.
That is a good concept. I do
Yeah.
like that.
The thing I didn't like, the fundamental thing I didn't like about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was that Nightmare on Elm Street 1 had rules, right? Had rules, okay? And when I say rules, as in Freddy will fuck you up in your dreams. The whole point of the movie is that you're trying to stay awake so that
So it doesn't
so that
fuck you up,
Freddy
yeah.
doesn't get you. Yet in this movie, Freddy comes out into real world and he goes to a pool party and he's like killing loads of people, like as many he's bodying people as much as, and it was just like, yeah, you just broke your own rule and you just made this like stupid kind of thing. It made no sense to me.
Mhm.
So I really didn't like number two, but there were elements in it that I was like, you know what, it's not so bad. But what I thought was funny though was like I was watching it and I was just like, why is there so many naked men in here? Like, what the hell? And I was like, this is really weird. And then
What
I watched a
channel am I
making,
on?
and then I watch a making of. Then I watch a making of, and then they say that like the director was gay and like the star was gay and the writer was gay, and I was like, oh, okay, that explains. Okay, cool. Um, but nothing wrong with that. It's just I didn't
Nope.
expect it. It was just a bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, saying that, it looks like this movie has a cult following amongst the
Mhm.
LGBTQ
What?
community,
Yeah.
and it's given it a
It's on the
big,
cinema, and we're sitting here on this.
yeah,
Obviously, it's Halloween. I think it's on the cinema today, tomorrow. It's on this weekend. Like Neil, I think
yeah,
Neil, you might have texted me, or someone my mate Chris might have said to me last week. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 right now, for whatever reason, is
yeah.
like a phenomenon. It's like it's in Cineworld for fuck's sake. They didn't put the
Because
first one on.
Yeah,
They didn't put
yeah,
the
yeah,
third one
yeah.
on.
right now,
But it's come
look,
back. It's come
the
back.
thing is, you gotta remember this, right? When it comes to horror films, especially slasher films, I must always make that premise because you've got things like The Conjuring and you've got things like, where it's like oh, the Conjuring is about a family, or you got these
Yeah, I
things
ain't touching those
about
things.
all of these films where it's just like it doesn't get to you because it's sort of like horror films get to you because everyone was a teenager. And if you're a teenager experiencing a slasher kind of horror film, you're in that zone.
Yeah.
Right? So I premise that, but I said that a lot of horror films are ahead of their time, and you don't realize that they're ahead of their time until that time comes. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is, it's always seen as the bastard child of Freddy movies and that, right? Because it subverts the rules, it changes things, it goes against, the set block of what Freddy's supposed to be. But at the same time, when they made that film, it was like 1985, 1986 versus, I think it was 1985 actually. And it's to go from there to 2025, where there is such a push for like the empowerment and the like promotion of like LGBTQ and all of that. And here's a horror movie about that. And it's a horror movie that isn't uh it isn't insulting you for being that.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
here's this movie, and and people can find theories and parallels between it. And it's like, you know what? Maybe, and this is just coming to my head right now, but maybe it's a thing of like, oh, the Jesse, the main character in number two is called Jesse, right? So maybe it's the reason Freddy is getting at Jesse is because he's gay. He doesn't realize he's gay, or not say he doesn't realize, but he's gay. He's struggling with how he feels about it, and because of that conflict, that inner turmoil he has in his own mind, that's how Freddy gets in.
Okay. Yeah.
But they utilize, but he lives in Nancy's house and he stays in Nancy's bedroom, and that's why.
Man, moved into the house. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No.
It's definitely found a new lease of life.
Yeah. 100%. It's got a cult following.
Yeah, and that's really cool for any movie to find their audience, and I'm glad it has. It's really funny that the leading guy never really popped up in anything again. I guess because I feel the movie outed him, and because the 80s was such a weird time for movie stars and stuff where people gave way too much of a shit. That who cares? He was very good in the movie, I felt, regardless of how I felt of the overall movie. And it's a shame he never went on to go do other stuff. I think he would have been a good.
You can't, the thing is, you fast forward to 2025 and people are still being fucking judged.
Yeah. But I'm glad that, because I read that the guy was going through a lot of hard times.
Yeah, he did. He went through a lot.
But I'm glad that this movie's getting a renaissance for him, if that makes sense. So, because it is, it's good for what it is. It's not a great Nightmare on Elm Street, compared to the other ones. But saying that though, I preferred it more than 4. To be honest.
Well, don't say it. I haven't watched it yet.
Sorry, man.
Look, all I'll say, and this is to not spoil anything that is to come for you, Andy, or for you, right? Is I'll look at it like this. As I said when we were talking about the MCU, some films, there are bad films. It's unfortunate reality, right? But a lot of films aren't bad. They're bad in comparison to what came before them.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is bad because it's not Nightmare on Elm Street 1.
And it's and they were still trying to figure out.
And there's so much turmoil. All right, for you, Andy, right? There is a book, and it cost me an arm and a leg, and possibly I may owe a demon a deal to get my hands on this book. But there is a book called Never Sleep Again. There is a documentary. This documentary is 4 hours long. It's called Never Sleep Again. I'd highly advise you to watch it, right? Because the book is hard to get hold of, but the documentary is easy to get hold of. I highly advise both of you to watch it. I would prefer,
Ken?
yes, I would prefer if both of you finish the whole series and then watch the documentary, because it's going to highlight a lot of things that you're like, I don't know about that. I don't, it will spoil things for you.
Yeah.
I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch it, and you'll find out why the Freddy series goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down, and the problems and all the things that happen with it. The the MCU book that I encourage you to buy, Andy.
Oh, I love it.
This documentary is that for Freddy.
Okay, I'll check it out. I've got to find 4 hours spare in my life, but that could be interesting. Boys, let's wrap up this episode with just another. While we're talking about horror, but just really quickly though, we're saying about 80s movies holding up, Star Wars, Back to the Future, etc. Still all hold up today, and there's not as bad as Nightmare on Elm Street. Just saying.
The budgets, come on now, the budgets.
But they still hold up. I can go and watch the original Star Wars now. One of the greatest movie, if not the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah, but Star Wars, think about it. Star Wars,
Back to the Future,
revolutionized.
Beverly Hills Cop. The first Beverly Hills Cop had a budget of about £1.
Right? Because we're talking about Star Wars made by 20th Century Fox, Back to the Future made by Universal.
The way George Lucas had to make that first film, bro, he's pretty much
yes,
a garage.
He did. I will never take away from that. But George Lucas is one of the most.
You got George Lucas to make any horror films, it would have been
film was ever come across, right?
A lot better.
New Line Cinema. The biggest hit they had prior to A Nightmare on Elm Street was Reefer. I think it was Reefer Madness, right? Which wasn't even a film they made. They just got the rights and distributed it. This is their first movie that they, as a company, invested in, made, and put out.
And it's good. It's fun.
And it is good.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you know what? I never knew that Freddy Krueger was the reason New Line Cinema existed.
Yes, it is.
And that's also why they churned out as many as they did, because, it was their cash cow machine and they needed to build the studio for other projects and stuff. And if you didn't have Freddy Krueger, you would never have Lord of the Rings.
And that's still true now if you think about it.
No Freddy Krueger. No Freddy Krueger. There's no Lord of the Rings. There's no Blade.
Yeah.
There's
no Blade. Which means no Marvel. Which means no Marvel.
There's no,
yeah,
right. New Line, Freddy Krueger. They call New Line Cinema the house that Freddy built. Every film.
Can we just have Freddy versus Doctor Strange? I mean, that I'd watch that film.
Look, I've seen some amazing things. Obviously, from my time.
Freddy Krueger couldn't beat one Marvel person.
Freddy Krueger could beat more than one Freddy.
No, he couldn't.
Person. He can kill most of them because everybody's got to fall asleep. And when you fall asleep, then you have
Let Black Widow fall asleep and see how that gets on with him.
Who?
Let Black Widow fall asleep and see how that goes.
Natasha Romanoff is a regular lady. Okay, she does have some powers, but she's done. I think you mean Black Widow.
Yes, I said, didn't I?
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch. Sorry, let Scarlet Witch fall asleep and then see how long Freddy lasts. Come on, right. let's Doctor Strange falls asleep. But no, boys, finishing up quickly, as we're short on time. The It series, I absolutely loved. It's that for me was perfect. I cheated. I didn't watch the original first.
No, that's fine.
I did cheat on this one. Welcome to Derry it's out now.
Yes, it came out.
We sit here it come out on Monday. It's come out on Monday. I'm gonna let them all get on to Sky Atlantic, I think it is, before I watch them. Very briefly, Neil. To me, now that's good horror. It was storyline was brilliant with the kids and etc. For me, I preferred that than Halloween, than Nightmare on Elm Street, than Friday the 13th, and all these others that I've been gracefully you told me to watch, and I have. For me, this It franchise that I'm now really into, Pennywise for me is I can't wait to watch the prequel. The second one I've lined up when they go back, because it's every 27 years that he appears. 27 years. What a great bit of genius story writing that is, because you can go so many directions. We're now getting a prequel of how Pennywise become Pennywise. Now for me, it's more thriller, horror, storyline based.
Yeah.
He is a new quote unquote virgin horror fan. That's the horror that I like. I like It, out of the first Black Phone, I thought was incredible. Am I now, Neil, in your judgment, someone like me or someone like that? Not maybe Sash kind of, he's got more of a knowledge in horror of me. Is that the way that horror is now? You've got your 80s fans like you, and my mate Chris is going to be watching this. It's like, dude, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. And I will never sit here and they're not my films and blah, 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 they're bad. I'm not here to judge anyone's. I grew up with Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and I'll be like you. I'll be on that hill. If anyone ever slags off Star Wars to me, then we're having a fight. Anyone ever tells you them first 3 movies are bad, We're physically having a fight. And I will say to you, you don't know nothing about movies, etc. And where so am I like is this where horror is now? Is it Black Phone 2? They're doing the prequel for the It series. Is there any more prequels that they could do for horror films moving forward? Is Nightmare on Elm Street ever going to get a reboot? What's horror now in 2025 kind of thing? Am I the new, is this, am
Do you
I
know what it
kind of
is?
now, I'm opening my eyes now.
Mhm.
I'm not really going to look back a lot, and I'll watch some of these classics purely because I'm told to. In
Yeah.
20 years' time, I might tell my grandkids to go and watch Star Wars because I've told them to watch it, but they might prefer The Rise of Skywalker. They might know Granddad Burrows. What are you fucking talking about? Yeah, do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get you. I put it to you like this. Everything obviously it moves and changes with the season, right? In 2000, the likes of Spider-Man, X-Men, Blade, those were what superhero movies were. Then I think it was 2006, we got the Dark Knight. We got the Batman Begins. And then suddenly superhero films look very different. And then 2 years later, we got Iron Man. And then suddenly superhero films started to look a little different. And then, it's this thing of, there's, hills and valleys and things change, right? When it comes to horror, we're in very much in a period, or I call it, we're in a triangle. There's a triangle, right? One point of this triangle is nostalgia horror, and that's when we're getting remakes, and even if it's not a remake, we're getting films that are set in the 70s or set in the 80s, right? They're drawing on your nostalgia, thanks to things like Stranger Things and that, right? The second point of it is we're getting these type of like it's it's gonna fall into the category of horror, but it's not essentially deep horror. A lot of these films are films that are coming out by like companies like, I'm not going to say A24, but they're like, there's a certain style of horror film, and it's like A24 is that kind of style. And you'll get films like Together, or actual horror films like Longlegs and stuff like that. And the other point of it is that the third and final point of the triangle is just people just being like, I just want to see remakes, or I just want to see the originals or the remake. An original film or a remake of an original film. So it's like things like, so we've got it, It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2, Welcome to Derry, these things here, right? And they're coming out, and it's people are invested in them because they were invested in it before.
I get it.
And I get it. Like 2 points of this triangle are pretty much the same thing. They follow the same course of nostalgia horror, and then people being like, I just want this because I loved it from back in the day.
But then you're getting the modern generation of what we were growing up. You're getting, and we've had this argument discussion. You're getting the new Star Wars fans. You're getting the new horror fans. You're getting the new Marvel fans. We started reviewing Marvel from the very beginning. Some people weren't even fucking. Some people were about 8 years old when that first Iron Man movie comes out, and they're now like in their 19, 20 years old, and they've only known what is now. Whereas, like Neil, you make a good point. Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. We've grown up with it. So when they do reboot these franchises, you're viewing it through the thing of, well, this better be as good as the original. Sash is the same with the original Star Wars trilogy to the news trilogy. But they're introducing it to a whole new audience. I'm kind of now sitting here as a 45-year-old man being introduced to horror with it. I didn't watch the original, with Black Phone, with these kind of movies. I'm thinking, fuck me, these are good movies, because movie making is very different now than it was in the 80s. So I judge myself and sometimes knock myself in the head and go, look, you're judging these movies based on fucking, you weren't a horror fan back then. They were made in the 80s. Now I'm kind of getting into my Black Phone 2s, and I went and saw that, and I'm going through Netflix, going, oh, what's the latest horror movie made? I'm like, fuck me, I loved the It series. Honestly, it was one of the, I loved it. People like,
you know what it is? The two films that came out, It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, that Pennywise now is what Freddy Krueger was.
Okay.
When the Nightmare on Elm Street
I
was
see
coming
it.
out. Right? It was okay, it's this there's twisted humor, and it's horror, and it's sinister, and it's all these horror, and it's just one being hunting these underprepared individuals.
Mm.
And it's like, but even though chapter one is set in the 80s, it's sort of like it's set in the 80s, but they have certain levels of modern sensibilities to the characters.
Mm.
Nightmare on Elm Street is filmed in the 80s, so they have what in 1984 was considered modern sensibilities to them.
Of course,
You
yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
Would you?
Mm.
This is a question for Andy.
Mm.
Would you watch a modern day Nightmare on Elm Street if they remade it like today?
Yeah.
And how would you do it? Would you think it would work better as a movie or a TV series?
I think the way the world is now, TV series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking this, and I'll tell you
Purely
why.
because the way the world is now and everything seems to be
Yeah,
TV
I'll tell you
series.
why. I'll tell
Marvel
you
do it
why
all
I
the
think
time now.
it's. I'll tell you why I
Star
think
Wars are doing it.
I'll tell you why I think it's best suited for a TV show. I think because there's so many of them and he keeps coming back, etc. Rather than bring him back every 5 minutes, you only give him one respawn, only one respawn.
Mm.
Okay, and I would have like I would have all the characters from all the films attend that high school or live on that on that street.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. That way you're incorporating everyone. Doesn't necessarily have to be those characters, or it could be your own characters that you
Archetype
play.
of those characters.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
they live on the street basically, but the secrets with the parents. And then obviously, you could go into their lives a bit more. You can explore each kid and their tussle with Freddy before the big showdown at the end kind of thing. You could even bring the element of two where he's actually looking for a host to come back in the real world. And I mean that could be like the cliffhanger for season two, that he possesses the kid from number two or a kid like the kid from number two, and that's how Freddy comes back for season two or whatever, but it's now in the real world kind of thing. I don't know. But rather,
I have deep ideas about how we
okay, cool, yeah.
Nightmare.
But that's where I'm going with it in my head. But I
Mhm.
want the finale to be like Dream Warriors, man, because is it Dream Warriors?
Yeah,
Dream
Dream Warriors.
Warriors is I'm telling you, Andy,
Andy, when you see it, you'll understand.
Okay.
it's Dream Warriors was the one for me, man. I cannot say how much I enjoyed that movie. Even I'm not going to go any more into it because
Mm-hmm.
would open up spoilers for Andy. I don't want
Yeah.
to. But again, like I said, all of these films, even though I don't like, some of them, they've got interesting elements where it's like that was a cool element, but you did nothing really with it to make it worth the
More than what
movie.
it was.
Yeah. But I think if you had it as a TV show where, you only get one respawn, you only get one respawn, you can introduce all of those elements into the series because you've got a cast of different characters that are having these nightmares. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how the structure would be, I don't know, because I need to see the other movies.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I don't know, man. The more I watch it, the more I'm like, you know what? Freddy needs a revival. He needs to go big, and
And considering what has
yeah.
been revived, just finishing up, boys, go, we are really are
Yeah.
short on time. Considering what has been revised in the last year, 2 years, how the fuck night Freddy Krueger has never really come back. I know it's like
Yeah.
it's obviously all the 80s ones are in the cinema now. I'm thinking, wow, because you've brought some really bad shit back and you've rebooted some really bad shit.
I
But
mean, growing up,
for this cultural phenomenon not to be rebooted is probably more surprising than
But don't
anything.
forget, they did reboot it, and the reboot didn't go down the way that they wanted it to. So
Yeah.
they kind of put the brakes on it. And then when they put the brakes on it, what then happens was horror moved on. We don't really get slasher horror movies anymore.
It's
Yeah,
more, I
that's
call it
true.
I
I
call
mean-
it thriller horror, Neil, is what I experience now.
Yeah.
Like I sit there and watch it, and there's a few like, oh fuck me, that was a bit scary. But it's
Yeah.
more like I reference Black Phone because it's the most recent one I've seen.
Yeah.
When you watch Black Phone 2 now, I can't wait for you now to see this movie because
Mhm.
everyone I've spoke to, I went with John who does the show with
Yep.
us, and I've spoke to 3 or 4 friends who have gone who are horror fans,
Mhm.
and I've watched lots of reviews on YouTube. They're like, "Fuck me, that was Nightmare on Elm Street," just in 2025.
Mm.
The premise
And that's the thing is you
dream
have that and
dream.
maybe
I won't spoil it for you, but
Yeah.
you'll get the premise of it, of the sleep, and I won't spoil it. For me, it wasn't as good as the first one, but it's apparently it's on track to be one of the movies of the year, Black Phone 2. I'm gonna go and see it again, just 'cause maybe, and then watch our review and tell me what you and give me your views on what you think.
Yeah.
Why everyone calls it Nightmare on Elm Street in 2025. That'll be really. As a horror fan, I can't wait for you to see that film, boys. It's been great sitting down talking some horror. It's a genre that I'm relatively new to. The Welcome to Derry. Maybe we can sit down and review that when they're all done and dusted, because that's going to be seeing how Pennywise become Pennywise is going to be fucking incredible to me. I can't wait for that. I'm honestly love this franchise. I didn't think I'd really enjoy a franchise as much as I have with this. You know, I'm not really one in for dressing up as Halloween, but someone please have a Halloween party so I can go as Pennywise. That's all I'm asking, you know, just for future reference. But boys, we'll be back next week. Our next Marvelous Monday, we are up to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Volume 2, which again, it splits opinion. I've got views on this movie. Not sure we're all going to agree. The David Fielding interview is going to drop later next week as well. And then Sash, I think we're losing you for like 3 weeks, aren't we, bro? Aren't you jetting off around? You're going to Australia?
Yeah, going to Singapore and Australia for a bit.
Yeah, so Sash is off, but me, Neil, John, we'll be here. We've got Marvelous Mondays coming up. We've got some great interviews coming up. We've got some really cool content. Go to YouTube, check us out at Completed It Pod. Go on to X at Completed It Pod is where you can interact.
Before we go, I have one last mystery question.
Okay.
Something got brought up in a lot of movie things about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
If they were to recast Freddy Krueger, the pick was, Neil knows exactly who I'm going to say. The name Jim Carrey was thrown out.
You put this in the group chat the other day and it went like a lead balloon.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Uninterested. Completely uninterested.
Andy?
I haven't watched enough of the franchise. I don't know many like horror.
Yeah.
I'm uninterested in seeing Jim Carrey as Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
I think
I'm a maybe.
It's maybe something we can get into a later day. I think you have to be a certain actor to pull off horror. You can't just Jim Carrey. It's like if you put Jim Carrey as the next Luke Skywalker, people will be like, "Fuck off." This guy's the Mask. This guy's Ace Ventura. But you know what I mean? You're not typecast. You wouldn't put someone like Dwayne Johnson as Freddy Krueger. You're kind of David Corset, maybe. I don't know. But then again, you're typecast of what you. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Jim Carrey. I don't know a lot about horror, and I don't.
That's a hard no for me.
No, I imagine him coming up from the bed. I just had visions of him with like the mask on. It's smoking time. You know, I couldn't do it. But boys, it's been a great week of content. It's been really good to sit down and chat movies and Marvel, etc., etc. Sash, I think we've got you for one more week ish. Maybe one more episode, and then you're off on your travels. Wish you safe travels, my friend. Enjoy your time in Singapore and Australia. No doubt we'll keep in touch on the WhatsApp group, etc., etc. But have great travels. Neil, me and you will be back with more content. John will be joining us, and anyone that wants to come on and ever join us and talk about movies, anyone that watches this or in the WhatsApp page, just give us a shout. You can come on, you can chat movies, you can agree, we can disagree, but we are all here because we are movie fans. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been a Halloween special. Happy Halloween to you all. Enjoy your Halloween, enjoy your weekend. We'll be back next week. Till then, stay safe.
Feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of daily life? Struggling with anxiety, stress, depression, phobias, fears, or just trying to get yourself back again? Discover the transformative power of focused solution hypnotherapy and counseling. Through guided hypnotherapy, relaxation trance allows your subconscious mind to access your inner resources and strengths you didn't know you had. Book your free consultation today and let's start your journey together. For more information, please email Sharon at scm-therapy.me